Go to MP Jennings. MP Jennings, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, colleagues. I want to salute Senator Tulajan's incredible work on this bill. She's explained very well the provisions of the bill, and I won't repeat them. I wanted to speak more to the process and timing around this bill's life kind of over the last 15 years. This concept was originally proposed by a Liberal MP, Boris Yashnevsky, and a similar bill was tabled by Irwin Cotler. Neither of those bills were able to be brought for a vote. The process started in 2008, so almost 15 years ago. Senator Tulajan and I began working on this bill shortly after 2015. We were able to see a previous bill on organ harvesting and trafficking, S-240, pass the Senate, come to the House, come before the Foreign Affairs Committee. It was amended by the Foreign Affairs Committee, adopted and sent back to the Senate, but unfortunately, the Senate, before the Senate could consider the revised version, we went into an election. So efforts have continued since. Exactly the same bill, in the same way it had been amended by the House of Commons Foreign Affairs Committee, was proposed and adopted by the Senate in the last Parliament. Again, it didn't make it through the process. This bill has now been adopted 3 times by the Senate, twice in its present form. It's been adopted previously by the House of Commons in its present form, and this form is exactly as it was amended by this committee in that Parliament. At the time, I was here at the committee, as was Boris Yashnevsky, who was the kind of the originator of this concept as legislation. So I'm normally the first person to say bills should be studied in detail. The fact is this bill has been studied extensively for 15 years. It's back before this committee in exactly the same form, and frankly, it's a no-brainer from a human rights perspective. We had good cross-party cooperation to get it up until this committee. The bill collapsed after only 1 hour of debate at second reading, and I was very grateful to be able to see that. Unfortunately, we're now only taking this bill up close to 6 months after it was referred to the committee, and my view is that it is valuable for committees to prioritize legislation, because although there's a range of important issues before any committee, legislation is where committees exercise their hard power. They can send recommendations as part of studies, but when it comes to legislation, that's where they exercise their hard lawmaking power. And I think we would all accept that if it was a government bill, there would be an expectation to prioritize it. So I very much wish we could have moved this bill forward earlier. Nonetheless, we are where we are. And currently, as this bill is scheduled, we would go to clause-by-clause consideration of it next Wednesday. Now, that is the last possible point before it would be automatically reported to the House anyways. So at this point, frankly, it is better for this bill if it is not considered at clause by clause and instead simply automatically reported. Because if it is considered at clause by clause and then reported to the House, then it has to go through report stage and third reading, whereas if we wait and simply allow it to be automatically reported on the 28th of November, then it goes straight to third reading and is able to move more quickly. I also think it would be very unfortunate if we had amendments adopted to this bill because it goes back through the Senate. And I don't want to have to wait another 15 years to pass a no-brainer piece of human rights legislation. This is the version as it was amended by the committee, amendments initiated by the government at the time. So I really hope we're able to get to that point of it being automatically reported. If we were undertaking study of this bill months ago, then there would be time to do clause by clause and maybe even time for amendments. But there just isn't time at this point, and so I'm very hopeful that that rather than seeing further delays, we will recognize the work that has already been done on this bill. We'll recognize the fact that this bill is in the form it was amended by the government the last time it was before the House, how many times it's passed the House and the Senate, Every time it's been up for a vote, it's unanimous, and so I'm hopeful that we would simply absorb and recognize the work that's been done and allow this bill to be automatically reported to the House so that it can go to third reading and proceed to finally, after 15 years, it become law. I think that's the least we owe to the many victims of this horrific practice around the world. Thank you, Chair.
You, MP Jenis, your timing was perfect. It was exactly 5 minutes. So now we will open it to questions by the members. Mr. Hoback, you are first, and you'll be happy to know you have 6 minutes.
6 minutes, Chair?
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
So does that mean I get 7 minutes or 9 minutes? Because I'm
No, 6
You sure
minutes.
it's not 6 or 9 minutes? Yeah, I am eating up my time. I would like to welcome Mr. McKay here too. I think that's great to see you here. Mr. McKay has a lot of my respect. I know his work in the U.S. has been very, very honorable, and I look forward to working with him down in the U.S. going forward for sure, because you do great work. Senator, I have one question. Like Mr. Genius has said, we've studied this bill. It's been sitting in front of us for numerous times, numerous occasions. You know this file inside out, and I think everybody in this room would recognize your strength on these types of issues. So is there anything that you see in this piece of legislation that should be added or amended or changed, or is it good enough the way it is, and is what should be the priority?
Thank you for that question. This is the bill that was sent to us that this committee and the House approved. And I've tabled it, I think 4 times, and I tabled it the first day we were back, and we didn't even take it back to committee because we already looked at it in the committee, and the senators are all satisfied, the senators on every side, unanimous consent that this is a good bill and we need to pass this. We accepted the changes that you made. So basically, this is what you sent us, and we brought it back to you. We accepted your changes, and I can't think of anything that we could add to it.
Thank you, the Senate, for doing the work that you've done. And
Thank you.
I think, like Mr. Genius has said, this has been talked about and talked about. I think it's time to move forward. So I don't know if there's any value in talking about this issue anymore. I think it's actually, like Mr. Genius has said, let's just get it out of the committee and get it voted upon, and let's get it into legislation. I think that's the goal here. So in light of that, Chair, our committee has quite a few things that aren't finished. It seems like we have different reports. We have some motions that haven't been read. So I suggest that maybe we continue. And basically what I would suggest we do is that we resume debate that the debate be resumed on the motion that Garnet Genius moved on Monday, November 14, and that a vote on the motion take place by the end of this meeting. Let's try to finish that debate and get it done today, and then we can continue checking that box and getting things done before Christmas. So I move that we move to that work.
Mr. Hoback, surely you recognize that that particular issue is not relevant to the issue that is before us today, and this was agreed well in advance. But is it? Okay.
Anybody else objecting to that? I think they all are very comfortable with what we've seen already as far as for the witnesses and their testimony.
This is not the same Foreign Affairs Committee. This is a new committee. It's a new Parliament, and we have absolutely the responsibility to ask the witnesses who've come here, in both in this panel and the next panel, and perhaps future panels, questions about this bill. We are not the same Parliament. We are not the Senate. We're the House of Commons, and we're a different Parliament, elected with a different mandate than in the previous Parliament. So I would actually strenuously object to say we fast-track anything on the basis that something was done somewhere else. It could have been done in another country, for all that matter. We're this Parliament, in this time, at this place, with this committee, with a new membership. I have never been on a committee in this House that has debated this bill. My first time. And so I would like the opportunity to get into it, as I think many members of the committee would like.